us a chance to get some people in the room. Hello. Okay, we are live now, and I just want to, you guys should be able to see any chats that pop up. I'm just making sure all this looks good while we wait for viewers. Oh, here we are. All right, cool. I'm gonna turn my phone volume down so I can make sure. All right, awesome. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining today's Facebook Live all about Net Promoter Score and this. Oh, Brian's here too. Oh, his video is not here yet, so let me see. Let him in the room in a second. But welcome. Today's live. Wanted to dive in and let me see the comment section. Okay, awesome. And talk all about Net Promoter Score. And, you know, it's coming out today. So I'll just preface this whole chat that you will have access to it around 4 p.m. Eastern time. So just about an hour from now, you'll be able to see your Net Promoter Score when you sign into studio.photoday.io, which is your studio panel. You will not see it in the dashboard app yet. It'll be in the studio panel. Oh, there's Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. And from there, it's just going to be the first iteration of bringing this feature to you. And yeah, we're excited. So I guess I'll dive in first just to talk about what is a Net Promoter Score. I saw a lot of comments and chats about this over the last few weeks, actually few months, more so in the last few weeks. And a lot of people are referring to this as a survey. Well, it is a survey because you're asking somebody a question, but it's really not a survey, and it's really not handled the same way surveys are handled. So a Net Promoter Score is basically like a scoring system. So it's much like your credit score, as an example, where there are certain factors that determine that score, and then there's guidelines for that score, right? So if you think about it like that, that's why it's called Net Promoter Score. And this metric is introduced. A lot of technology companies, a lot of larger corporations use this score to give customers a voice and to help determine, you know, where they might be lacking in their business and what they need to be working on. So the question is worded very specifically because of that, because you can't, when you survey somebody or when you ask somebody a question, the way you ask the question matters because you can sway bias, right? One way or another when you ask a question. So the question is meant to be very simple. It is, you know, basically would, you know, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this to a friend, right? There's no other question besides that. It's just you're using a numerical rating system, and we're asking that one question. Now, we combine PhotoDay plus your studio name in that question. So because they used PhotoDay to view and purchase their images from you, the studio, we combine both into that one question to try to get the best score possible, and the best insight into why we're getting that score, right? So when they have a chance to answer that, it then asks them if they'd like to give us the reason why they gave that score. And that's where you get detail as to why they gave that score. Now, everybody doesn't have to answer that. And then we also asked if it's okay to be contacted, because if they are trying to vent about a problem or an issue, or maybe they just want to sing praises to you, we have to ask permission to, if you'd like to contact them or not, right? So it's kind of that score. It's 3 separate questions, but the main question is that first one, that 0 to 10 rating. Would you recommend this service to a friend? And that's because Net Promoter Score is broken down into 3 categories. So you have your promoters. They're going to give you a 9 or a 10. We see a lot of 10s, for everybody, you guys, I know all here today joining me, see a lot of 10s. And then the passives, which are, if they give you a 7 or an 8, they're like, meh, they don't have a strong opinion one way or another. They're not going to count towards bad. They're not going to count towards good. They're just going to count in the percentage of people who actually responded to the question. And then you have 0 to 6, right? Those are all considered your demoters. Those are people that would not recommend you, right? So the question is very simple, and it is meant to find out if this is something valuable or not to your customer. This checkout process, the quality of products, the photography, picture day in general, the cost versus value. From there, it can really determine all these different things. So bringing it to Photo Day, we were really excited because first, as far as I know, personally, I don't think this has ever been done before, like, especially from paper forms. How are you ever going to figure out what your customers think about you or the service or the ordering method or anything for that matter, right? We just judged it based on sales, how good we're doing, how many people bought, how many people are just, but we never knew why. Why were we doing that well, or why were we doing that bad, right? So it was always just making our best guesses. So with that said, today joining us is Sue-Ann. She's one of our trailblazers from Picture Perfect Images here in the Tampa area. So hi, Sue-Ann. We have Ed and Kathleen Martin from LKN Images, husband and wife powerhouse team out of North Carolina. And then Emily from Justin Grafton Studios. You guys might recognize Justin with the big beard everywhere. That's Emily's other half.
Yeah, just like that.
Yeah. So, and they're from all the way out on the west coast of Oregon. So I thank you guys for your time today. And Emily is the one that does most of the work behind the scenes. That's why she's here. She does all the heavy lifting. So just want to thank you guys today. And so just so everyone here tuning in knows, you guys are trailblazers, Ed, Kathleen, Sue-Ann, Emily, Justin, and mostly all of our trailblazers. We gave them early access to their own Net Promoter Scores and data. And just to get a feel on what this could be. Oh, wait. Brian's here too. Hold on, let me let him in the room.
Better let him in.
Oh my God, live from the car. Careful, Brian.
Live from the car. There you go.
Actually, I think you... Everyone making a grand entrance.
You know it.
You there?
Maybe not.
Yeah. You hear us?
Okay.
I can hear you guys. You can't hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. We got you.
We can hear you.
We're good.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. So yeah.
So
it's weird because it's coming through my stereo in my car.
We might have a little bit of a delay. So while you figure that out, let's just get right to it. I guess everyone's probably really interested to know the type of feedback you're getting and your reaction to that initial feedback. So Sue-Ann, I'd love to start with you. You got all your responses. They were, I mean, when we turn this thing on at 4, you're going to get it the same way, maybe a little bit more extensive than our trailblazers received that first beta batch of responses. So it will be retroactive. So you'll get all the responses from day 1 until present. If you elected to turn NPS off, there will be a hard stop date on your responses and no more. If you want to turn it back on, let us know and we will gladly do that for you. But Sue-Ann, when we gave you your responses and you saw them for the first time, what was your initial thought? Can you talk a little bit about how you absorbed that all?
Actually, I sat and I read every single one of them and looked at what schools they were from. And I actually kind of just any of the negative ones that I did have, I like looked at them, looked at the schools. I'm like, okay, I'll take that as an under advisement. It is mostly about pricing, but then when I looked at the school, it's that clientele. So I'm like, okay, will I make a special price list for this school? Possibly, but I'll look and see when the gallery's done at what we ended up with, and we'll go from there. But I took all the information and took it as constructive, because I've always listened to my customers and make improvements where I need to. So I was glad to get the information, and because with the old way, I saw the customers all the time. Well, now I don't see them, so I had no way to improve or fine tune anything, and now I do. So I think this is a plus, getting to know what the customers feel and think.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Going from offline, you were selling spec packages, so you got to see the reaction right then and there when you're selling the prints on that speculative basis, versus they're ordering online and you never see anything and you don't know what they're saying.
Exactly. So now I do, and most of it was, they named the photographer and everything. So I'm like, okay, I can give them a pat on the back, and not that their egos aren't big enough, but so it was all good. Even the bad, I took it with stride, because it wasn't that many. Matter of fact, it was less than a handful. So I'm like, okay, we're good.
Was there any notable responses, good or bad, that just shocked you?
No, not shocked. One said their child was crying. Well, okay. I understand your child was crying, and I know my photographers. So if your child was crying, there was no consoling. So, but other than that, no, nothing shocking, price. I did like to hear that they liked our props, so that, because that's always a big, like, you're never sure, is this going to be the right thing for this background, so that I did like to hear. So
yeah. And for anyone tuning in, just so you know, Sue Ann's main business is preschools. That's why she would have a crying child.
Oh, come on, we've had them crying in high school.
You don't make any high schoolers cry. So yeah, for sure. So is there anything else you'd like to share regarding your responses or your thoughts on NPS in general?
I think overall it is a good business tool to keep your business on track. Fine tune where you need to be. If you're getting a lot of complaints on, prices, or you're getting a lot of complaints on background or whatever, you can fine tune, and you can also take that extra customer service. If it's somebody, maybe you need to call them if they've given you the permission, and find out and do something for them that will soothe them over, or maybe they have a special circumstance, you never know. But I always like to reach out and do that extra special for customers, so, and keep them happy.
Yeah, gives you that chance to shine.
Yeah.
Plus, I like making people feel good in general. It makes you feel good, right? When you make somebody else feel good. So it's a feel good thing. It's one of those feel good things.
Yep.
So what about, we'll move on to, thank you, Sue Ann. We'll move on to Ed and Kathleen. So what were your initial thoughts? I know you had some comments back right away when I sent them to you.
Some of them are funny. I mean, somebody was, the pricing. That, I think if somebody's not saying something about your pricing, then you're too low. So to have somebody say, yeah, your price is a little high, well, then I'm probably right where I need to be. If everybody's saying it's too high, well, then we'll talk. But right now, it's kind of a bell curve. So that was one of the first things. It's kind of they liked us. They like us. That when the people internet kind of tend to troll a little bit, and when you're not having to stand in front of somebody and say yes or no, I like you, it's easier to say the more negative than the positive. And so it was really pleasant to see that there were a lot of positive. I mean, wow.
Yeah, not a lot of negatives.
And the negatives, I get it. Yeah. The packages, or, couldn't figure this out. And, they were all our negatives, by the way, were from July before. Nothing since July. We haven't had any of the negatives, which we've done the majority of our business since August.
Mhm.
So that was really pleasant to see. That was good. So
I think
That's awesome.
as you we start immediately with the negatives, of course. You start looking through that list, and I saw the first one on there, and there was a 0. It's like, oh my God,
Who's
what's
the
wrong? Well, the beauty of Photo Day is you've got all the data, and everybody's going to get it at 4:00 today. But you see the school, like Sue Ann said, but you can also see the email address. So you can go back and you can see what that customer did. And at least I texted you that night when you sent it to me. It's like, this customer, the comment was, it wasn't a good value, and they gave us a 0. That was in April of this year. Now, the way North Carolina sports work, that's happened to be a high school football team, the way they did sports last year is they kind of packed everything into the beginning of this calendar year to finish out the 2021. It was just whack. So they played football in April, then they played football again in August. Well, this customer that gave us a 0 and said it wasn't a good value in April came back in August and spent $80 on the next set of packages. So wow, like I said to you that night, Lisa, it's like, I want to suck that bat all the time. That's fantastic. They obviously came back. And not only did they spend $80, we do that 48-hour free social download. They bought the next set of packages within the first 48 hours and got the social media download. Mm-hmm. So either we got a lot better because there was no positive remark from the same email address later on, but you're able to do things like that, which I thought was great. And really, okay, did they just click the wrong number? Did they mean to click a higher number? And it needs to be
it's about a bad day. And every negative comment you get, somebody still bought something because you have to buy something before you can make a comment. So you might hate me, but you didn't hate me that much, and you might not like. And I know we all take it personally, but you might not like the whatever it is. You still bought the photos, and so there's something to be said for that. Although we probably don't want to hear what the people who didn't buy say.
Those are, let's just baby step into that. Okay.
Yeah.
This one first. Baby steps.
But I think there's one more thing, and we can let it go from OK and Images. But I think it's fantastic that Photo Day is doing this, because as a small independent studio, we couldn't do this. The feedback we get from customers is usually face to face, and face to face, nobody's going to tell you suck. Nobody's going to tell you that they're typically. Well, that's usually about me, though.
Well, you always got one in the bunch, right? That's
there's always one. But you're not going to get really the feedback you could get, and you guys, by going out and doing this so globally for us and getting this stuff, and there's the positive and the negative of being anonymous on the internet. People will tee off a little bit more, maybe, but we didn't see that teeing off on us at all. It was great, objective feedback that has a score that we can kind of really compare things to. So I just think it's fantastic. But anybody out there that's considering turn it off, don't turn it off. Let it go for a while. See how it goes. Learn a little bit. And then if you really hate it, then turn it off. But I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised.
I can't imagine why you hate it, because it's just great feedback.
It really is.
Really good stuff to learn.
Gotta grow.
For sure. And I think, when we launched NPS, we really were trying to figure out, are people really enjoying the whole experience within Photo Day? Is our data shows one thing, but giving the customer a voice ultimately says, hey, are we doing a good job together as studio, as lab, and as Photo Day to make sure these customers have the best experience possible? Because we know that happy customers equal happy profits, right? And that's what ultimately our goal is. So it was a great way to collect that feedback. So Emily, you got yours the same night. Everyone got there.
Yeah. Justin didn't want anything to do with it. So I read every single one of them. Well, so, like a little bit of context for those of us, or those who don't know us specifically, we live in a really small town. So we see people and we hear firsthand, when they're mad at us, they tell us right to our faces. And sometimes it'll get around, or somebody will be there will be some information that gets back to us that somebody is unhappy. And so we chase it down. So this isn't too far outside of the scope of how we normally have to operate, just because we're at the same grocery store. We're going to the same baseball games. Until, and Kathleen said something about looking at the date. I actually hadn't even bothered to sort it by date, but that's interesting because it's mostly when we were in the same situation where people were doing like cramming everything in and making us do all the sports, and we had school portraits at the same time. Like in March of 2021, people were like, "Arr!" But I think that's
Yeah,
also,
they were not fun people back then.
and I'm thinking like sociologically too. I'm thinking about what has happened this year, and I'm kind of looking at this timeline, and you can see when specific stressors would have been resurfaced, especially in our little town. So we only have about 10,000 people right here. It's kind of a hotbed politically, I will say, as far as like the divide. So when stuff happens in Oregon, we hear about it a lot. And it looks to me like some of these kind of have to do with when people are a little upset about what's happening in their state. And it's mostly about being expensive. The one I really liked was when they said that they were mad that their children, well, and this is kind of a sad thing, but like they said that they were mad that their children were tired, dirty, messy hair, old uniforms. And it's like, well, I didn't dress
Kids
your
are
kid.
dirty.
Can't fix
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And
Yeah.
two, like the other thing that I have to remember is that, so we take all of this with a grain of salt. We really try to reach out to people because we also live in a town where so every single elementary kid in our town is on free lunch, basically in our county, because of the socioeconomic divide. So we're really sensitive to this, and we try to do a really good job for people, and we try not to be too expensive. But just like you guys said before, it's fewer than more who are commenting on our being too expensive. And I feel like if we were, just like Kathleen said, if everybody was like, you're too expensive, then maybe we'd need to talk. But I feel like we're kind of right in the in a sweet spot. And then ever since August, it looks like, number one, we haven't had any zeros since May, which is good. Like the last worst one was May 30th with a 3, expensive. And then the rest of them are just like people saying meh, like 5s or 6s. So I mean, like if you're not going to say anything, but you're going to like charge me with a 5 or a 6, then I guess, I mean, I think you just were kind of maybe having a bad day. And then the 10s are really funny because like the 9s and 10s, like people mention his beard all the time, and so like people like that. So I don't know. I mean, it's cool. I like it. I thought it was helpful. I thought that it was good, open, honest feedback. I felt like it was a nice marker with our clients. I always say like a yes is as close to where we want to go as a no. So either way, I'm going to learn some information and be able to make some moves from whatever feedback you give me, whether that's positive or constructive or negative feedback. So it's been ultimately really helpful for us, and for me specifically. I just kind of passed it on to him, when he was here. I said, most of them are good. And he was like, all right, good. Are there any that I need to read? And I was like, no, the one that was like the worst, there was a missive email that was sent to us, like a very long explanation of why they hated us. And that same person sent us 0.
He's since been put on a restraining order.
Well, and sometimes we'll be like, okay, then please don't order. Please don't order from us. It's okay.
Yeah. Sometimes you can fire a customer.
Yeah, we've done that before, and then they come back and they're like, they surreptitiously try to order, and sometimes Justin will call and be like, "Hi, hey, listen, the last time like we had a hard time with you, so yeah."
I could just see him doing that.
He's so good at it. Oh my gosh,
I've
so
lost
good
all
at
mine
it.
from you guys.
He's so good at it.
Oh, I think I just locked up, but I'm back now. Can you guys see me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool. With that said, I wanted to bounce over to Brian because during our call where we're like, all right, we're going to give you all the NPS data, Brian was like, no, I don't want to see this. Count me out. Like, Brian, can you hear us? Oh, no.
Very good.
Brian, can you hear us? You there?
Hi, Brian.
Brian.
No, he can't hear us. We'll have to come back to Brian.
He's a little frustrated.
Yeah, he's just a little frustrated. Sorry, Brian. No, can't hear us.
Doesn't lip read.
Nope. All right. Well, I'll just jump back to, I think, some key, important points that I wanted to make with MPS. And when we lost them all together. So when we originally launched this, it did not appear to you guys right away. The main reason is because we just didn't know what this feature's potential actually was going to be. It's never been done before, right? So we needed to collect enough feedback to figure out, okay, how are we going to present this? What type of feedback are we getting? And how can we make it optimal for studios to use this feedback in a very constructive way as it's intended to fuel your business growth, right? And predict your business growth. So how can we see that data? So then obviously, if you're following along in the users group, you saw all the reasons and all that good stuff. I won't bother rehashing now. But I feel like what we're releasing today is just kind of like an initial view. But what I don't, personally, what I didn't want to happen and what we feel as a company we didn't want to happen is to discourage anyone if you don't get a lot of good feedback, right? Because there's always room for an improvement. And the amount of feedback you get actually matters too. You know, with any kind of data, there needs to be enough of it to really make sense and for it to really be actionable for your business, right? So if you just started with PhotoDay and you didn't put a lot of orders through, you probably won't have a great score because you don't have enough feedback. And that's something to consider. It's just like your credit score. When you first start out and you're 18 years old and you get that, you have crappy credit. You have got to build it over time. So it works very similar. You need enough data to actually like hone in and on that credit score. And then I thought, well, what is the benchmark? How much data do you actually need? And that's different for everybody because, you know, you have, there are photographers that do tens of thousands of kids a year, and there are photographers that do a few hundred, right? And there's some that are even using PhotoDay just to do one team here and there. So, so you have all different types. And so what we see is about 10% of the people where the Net Promoter Score, 10% of your customer is actually responding to the question. So if you have 1,000 purchases in PhotoDay, you're probably only going to have around 100 responses, and that should be a good number, a good basis. But if you do only 100 kids a year, and you have 10 responses, that's pretty much the max you can expect for that time frame. So that's data for you to do what you will, but that's about how many of the people are responding. So I did want to share that important information. And let me see if I can get Brian back. And I also have Karina here from Smacks. She's in the car.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
We should go jump in the
car. Streaming from the car. So Brian, before we lost you before, we were like, hey, like Brian's like, don't send me my data. I don't want to see it. So what did you think about it because I didn't listen to you, because obviously you never listened to me. So I wasn't going to listen to you and I sent it anyway. So.
I'm a little stubborn that way. Honestly, I was blown away. I was really surprised at how many promoters I had. I mean, it was either you absolutely love me or you hated me. So, and honestly, on the bottom end of that, I think I only had 2 that had actual replies that gave me constructive criticism on, what they didn't like and how things worked and what I could do better. But inevitably, it was about pricing. And my philosophy on pricing is if they're not complaining about your prices, you're still too cheap. So raise your prices. So I must be doing something right there. But honestly, I was blown away about the amount of detail that I got from my promoters on what I was doing right. So, the old adage of, don't listen to the bottom, don't change your business model for the one squeaky wheel that's causing problems or that can't figure something out. But evaluate it, use the information. I think it's been great for me to get that feedback, but I was pretty nervous thinking, I've been on this for 3 years. I have no idea how long you guys have been doing the promoter scores, but I thought, if this goes back far enough, I've got one that's just the only reason they existed was to give me a complaint. There was no making that one person happy. I figured they'd be my worst detractor, but no, honestly, it was very well, very worth the while, and a very educational eye opener for me. So.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I was excited to read your response. You were like, "Hey, it's not all bad."
I'm like,
I
felt like
myself.
Sally Field at the Emmys. They like me. They really, really like me.
That's
Anyway.
awesome. So Karina's here from Smacks. Jay's other half. Jay can't be Jay without Karina. In case nobody
I'm on
else
the
here
way.
knows
I'm
that.
on the way to meet him.
But we're getting messages. Nobody wants you to chat live while you're driving. Everyone wants you to pull over. So
Me?
yeah.
I can't. I'm already late to my shoot. I'm heading to Valdosta, so I can't.
Well, maybe don't look at the camera. So just keep looking at the road when I ask you this question. So Karina, when you first got all the responses and you were able to comb through them, what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah. Well, it was like a weird rabbit hole to go to. Just for me, honestly, I automatically went to the negative responses. Like I saw the positive ones and I was like, yeah. I know we're great, but I want to know what people had to say on the negative side. And I mean, I was looking at the dates on the people who had complained about us, and I found that most of the complaints were actually, and it's not as of recent, I'm glad to say, but it was over actually the ordering process and about like advance pay. People felt like they were misled with advance pay because I have packages. I do get the advance pay that's $35. You get free shipping. Well, I have my most basic package, which is $33, and people felt like they were misled because they're like, well, then I'm forced to have to buy more to be able to get my free shipping. They said I get free shipping, and so I think, just being able to figure that out about how to word something about the advance pay. I think I had a lot of people who were confused about that, but then also just about the PhotoDay process of just actually ordering. But y'all have since then, any of the detractors, you have since then improved your shopping cart, which has helped dramatically with the score. So I was just looking at the dates, and I mean, that was the main thing. I had a few too expensive, but if you tell me that my $33 package, you can get a bunch of stuff, is too expensive, I'm going to tell you to kiss my, I mean, some people were complaining. They were like, I only had 8 pictures to choose from. And I'm like, what did you have to choose from before?
You only gave them 8 amazing photos. They wanted more photos.
Yeah, they only had 8. Or, so that was, some of the complaints were a little bit ridiculous. Some of them they were totally expected because I had, but I had resolved them through email. So they still give me a bad score, and but they had been resolved, a lot of them. And then but the positive ones, they were so delightful to read. A lot of them, they mentioned Jay by name. Even though sometimes they get Jay and Scott confused, they call Scott Jay. So I think they think every male is just Jay. So they're like, Jay was great. And they mentioned him by name, which is so nice. So yeah, it was good. Overall, it was good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all that. Thanks you guys for hopping on.
Was I looking?
Yes, you did a great job. You were looking at the road the whole time, so thank you. We need you safe. So
I don't know if I want to go to this shoot. I might want to not ride. It's gonna be horrible.
oh my gosh. So yeah, I'll just reiterate one more time. So it looks like this feature will be launching around 4 p.m. today. So in about 30 minutes or so, the feature will be live in your dash. You will have to consistently download the responses to see the newest one. This was basically the best we could do in the short amount of time with everything going on this fall. To get this to you guys as quickly as possible. So, yes, again, if you had elected to turn it off at some point, it is not going out. You will not get additional responses. If you want to turn it back on, it will not be retro, but it'll start up with any new jobs or new orders that you get from here on out. So make sure to reach out in the bubble if you wanted to turn that feature back on. But yeah, we're really excited for this first iteration. Our customer success team, staff, Stevie, Alexa, Krista, Emily, myself, we're all available to chat. If you get stuck, if you are unsure with what to do with your responses or how to handle it, we are here to support you guys and help you and help make you successful with this data. So don't be shy, reach out one-to-one in the bubble. And if you guys have questions here, you guys are watching now, there's 23 of you. If you have questions, go ahead and holler them out in the chat so we can answer while we're live. Well, now there's 25 of you. So shout out your questions in the chat. If you got anything to ask us live. If not, if you feel better in a one-to-one scenario, go ahead and reach out in the support chat bubble, and we'll be happy to help you guys with that. But yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
I'm pretty excited. There'll be a new, besides the blog post, there'll be a new support article that gets put out today as well with the feature. So there'll be some more in-depth review of the data, what to do with it, what it means, all that good stuff for you guys. So thanks again.
Cool.
And happy November. Can you believe it? November. So thanks for the time. Thanks for being part of PhotoDay. You guys make it awesome. Especially thanks to our trailblazers.
Bye,
You guys
guys.
are amazing support system.
See you, everybody.
All right. Bye.